multiple smaller cables are easy to handle.
I've heard of horror stories before as well where they've had to run it through this suspended cable ladder through the middle of the building on rod and supports and all this other stuff as well. That to run that cable in, you need a crew of say about 8 to 10 people on scissor lifts or boom lifts, pulling that cable through at different stages. Do you want to do that multiple times, or do you just want to do that once with a larger cable?
Need clarity on AC cabling and cable tray design? This 11-minute video breaks it all down. It's taken from a longer podcast with Gil Rhodes from the Green Room. Check it out here, and remember to comment, like and subscribe. Let's get stuck into it. I want to get back to AC cable and cable tray because it is it can be potentially a massive cost, especially when the runs, for whatever reason, the switch room where you can actually put components, the whole bit can be fairly far away from each other. Now, if you put a neutral next to, say, a trefoil configuration, right? Does because the neutral's just there's no real energy going down. I mean,
in theory, okay, yep.
Can it act as a heat absorber from the heat being dissipated from the installation from one of the actives that it's next to? And if that's the case, why wouldn't you always have a quadfoil config to take up less lateral space in a tray with only a slight increase in vertical space? Please explain.
Please explain. Okay, I'll do my best.
Yes.
And I know that there's a lot of debate about this out in industry.
Right.
So my take on this is that I am trying to keep the airflow restrictions to a minimum. So if it means that I've got my 4 cables together, which are already sitting in a footprint, either in trefoil or quadfoil,
yes,
however they are,
yes,
and I can space them a bit further away from the next set.
Yep.
That means that I'm helping to maximise that airflow. So that neutral conductor element may not actually be so much of an influence. So, and as well too, is that
don't forget the earth though. If we're talking about inverters running to the interface protection, we're including an individual earth.
So if you have that earth stacked on top as well too, yes.
Right, okay. Can do. Right.
As opposed to having them stacked on one side of the tray, which is restricting, how far apart you can put your other sets, then that sort of all needs to play in together.
Wow.
So there's my opinion is that I would rather see a set of cables sitting there, tied together as much as possible.
Yes.
For a couple of different reasons. And trying to maximise the airflow around it for cable ratings. You've also got other things as well too. In the event of a fault, what actually happens to those cables? And this is where you talk about cables being tied together and making sure that they're secured properly and all this other stuff as well too.
Right.
And then you're talking about if you have a look, where is it? In 3008, I think it's Appendix D. There's a guide as to how you do your orientation of your active conductors.
Oh, yes. I've got that in one of the trainings. Yeah, from a magnetic disturbance perspective. Yes.
So that not only applies for that, but also to that you're trying to, minimise your losses. I mean, that's where a lot of it comes from.
Yes.
If you can keep everything nice and balanced, you are actually minimising your other losses.
Yeah, right.
So we talked about I squared R losses with regards to cables before. Now we're talking about other potential ones, which is more to do with reactance.
Right.
And so this is where trying to keep them together. And as you quite rightly said, theoretically no current in the neutral. There probably is.
Okay.
So and that is going to be.
But it's a balanced load. It shouldn't be. The inverters are a balanced load.
In theory, yes.
Aha.
So you may actually have some scenarios. I mean, that in theory, everything is nicely balanced.
La.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
And this goes back to the old trade days where we had to do the vector diagrams, the power factor vector diagrams, all this other stuff as well. Yeah, phasor diagrams, all that sort of thing, where we had to do it with the ruler method and everything too. That what you're ideally trying to do is get zero result. out of the current flowing through a set of conductors. So by doing that and keeping them all together, you're doing as best as you can with regards to that. So no stray currents or anything like that. Interesting point though is that if you are actually, this goes back to the cable operating temperature thing as well, if you are grouping your cables that way,
yes,
and your earth cable is sitting as part of your group,
yes,
your factors with regards to how much prospective fault current that earth cable can take starts going down, the warmer the earth cable is. So there's other things as well too. There's a table in the back of 3008 that talks about your insulation factors based on your not only your maximum operating temperature but your actual starting temperatures and all this other stuff as well too. So there's a few different things that play into it. That's why I keep talking about coordination reports because they take all that into consideration. So yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
We're still talking cable tray and AC cable again because it's such an expensive component. Like from
and it can be a huge factor on a job as well too. I mean, have a look at the price of cabling these days. And I suppose another thing too is that have a look at your method of installation. We touched on doing the stuff on the roof.
Yep.
Have a look at doing the stuff on the switchboard. So if you've got a scenario where you're having to potentially deal with, what we said before, 500 kVA system, 1,000 amps. 1,000 amps is not exactly easy to cable. You've got to get it right.
Yep. It's what's your rule? Is there a rule of thumb that you would apply? For instance, say for example that you've got an example. I'll give you an example. In the training I use from between the PVDB, the interface protection, the grid safe.
Fantastic product.
Thank you. Tick tick.
Yep.
1800 amps, right? So you're talking a big. In the end. It's parallel 185s, right? So 185 mil paralleled XLPE 110, right? Now, obviously, you could go a larger cable. You could go a single cable if it was close, right? So three 185s, Gil, whatever it is, okay, it's whatever it is. So let's say that it's another cable size and you decide to parallel. What's your view of going, well, if I can achieve the same current capacity and V rise from a single cable compared to parallel, what's your view from an installation perspective? Because to me, logically, multiple smaller cables are easier to handle. Is that so? What's your view?
Yeah. A few different factors. The length of the run probably being the biggest factor.
Right.
And I've heard of horror stories before as well where they've had to run it through installations and they've got this suspended cable, ladder, tray, whatever, through the middle of the building on rod and supports and all this other stuff as well. And they don't factor in that to run that cable, it might be 150 metres or something like that from one end of the shed to the other, the weight, and the fact that to run that cable in, because there might be a couple of dog legs or whatever else that's there, that you need a crew of, say, about 8 to 10 people on scissor lifts or boom lifts, pulling that cable through at different stages and all that sort of thing as well too. So do you want to do that multiple times or do you just want to do that once with a larger cable? So this is where this sort of analysis starts coming into it. A rule of thumb that I've got with some of the clients that I work with that use flexible cables, for example.
Of course.
If you're using flexible cables...
Slightly less CCC.
Probably negligible. It doesn't really sort of matter too much.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, things like bend radius comes down.
Yes.
Ease of them to manoeuvre, either below a switchboard or coming into a switchboard or onto a termination within a switchboard, those sorts of things as well.
Yep.
What we're talking about is installation of those cables. You might, for example, you might have to pay a little bit more for a particular cable, but you're saving that 2 or 3 times on the difference between the cables with your installation.
I suppose there's another thing to think of. If, say, you use, let's say, multi, multi on from the inverter to the PVDB, but we don't. We tend to use SDI, right?
Yep.
And I was just thinking, well, you could use multi, but the thing is, multi suddenly has a vertical height of whatever it is when you're using 95 mil
because of the bend radius.
I'm saying the actual, if they're all bundled together, it might, and you have to put lid on top, it might go over the edge of the tray. I mean, theoretically, wouldn't it? So,
so peak lid or whatever else that's there as well too.
Okay, right. So there's a lot to think about.
Yes. Yeah, and as we said before, just because it was done a certain way previously doesn't mean we should do it this way. You know, there could be different ways to run these cables, or there could be different ways to specify them. You might have a cubicle, like you're saying. You might have a 1,000 amp cubicle to come into.
Yeah.
But the switchboard builder assumed that they would be 2 by cables per phase,
right?
And so they've only allowed for a gland plate to bring in those 2 cables per phase.
Right.
So this is why it's very important to try and coordinate everything, coordination study, and make sure that everything is coming together, because there's no point in bringing together a cable solution into a switchboard which hasn't been allowed for. So there's a lot of things each way on this.
I think there's a couple of things that most people don't make this mistake, but I do make it on purpose during the training. Is I start doing the current capacity and the volt rise calculations from the inverters that way, and I do it on purpose because what I end up with is over 2%, and I go, I made a mistake. But now I have to go back and change that 3 by 185 mil to 240, not because the 185 couldn't do the current. Yes. It was because of bloody V rise.
Yes.
And it's just, I know it's a simple thing, but start from that point of supply, point of attachment. You don't want to change that cable. So you're going to do that one. And then if it's like a simple to the MSB and then to the interface protection back to the inverters, sometimes it's different. Then you can sort of adjust where you can, hopefully in the cheapest possible way. Because cable's really expensive. Really expensive.
It is. And then your installation costs can only go from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.